If you're someone that suffers with anxiety and your problem lies within what is that overthinking, worrying mind that just won't switch off, constant racing thoughts, catastrophizing, intrusive thoughts, wherever it may be, where it's just non-stop in the mind. And this is going to be for you because you've ultimately taken things or done things like meditation, mindfulness, journaling, CBT, therapy to kind of just rationalize and challenge your thoughts and just really make sense of it so that you stop worrying, so you stop overthinking, right? At the end of the day, you just want it to stop. But despite that, the mind's still doing what it's doing. And again, this is why you're here and this, why you're looking at this video today. As we'll be looking into the exact approach you should be taking instead so that you can stop it for good. Now, just so that you're aware, this is video 3 out of a 5-part video series where the last video we actually went into the physicality of anxiety instead, right? So those who are suffering more through physical symptoms, panic attacks, dissociation, sensations, body sensations. So if you were going through physical kind of like symptoms of what is anxiety, then I do say, you should watch that previous video. And it's also important that you watch that previous video as well, because some of the components today are still going to be dependent on you being aware of components of that video too, right? Because it's still important because it's all about trauma at the core of things, which we're going to go into today. So if you haven't watched it, do have a look. It's still interesting. It's still good for you to be aware of what we do at a body level, right, to overcome anxiety. But of course, we're going to keep this video today to what is, again, that overthinking, racing mind, constant worrying, etc., and how we're going to deal with that. Now, for those of you that do not know me, my name is Kevin Sach, and I've been through various forms of anxiety 4 times in my whole life, looking at patterns, understanding what worked, what didn't work. And yes, the overthinking and worrying mind is definitely something that I've been through. Obviously, extremely scary when you first get anxiety because you're literally clueless on what's going on. But the most specific instance of this, of what is, again, a mind that just won't switch off, has to have been when I had my phobia. So I've been through anxiety, phobia, trauma, and stress and worry. Those kind of like the 4 things I've been through. But the biggest mind thing was definitely the phobia, because I was going through intrusive thoughts, and it was a stage of my life where I just really couldn't stop it. It would just come out of nowhere. And of course it was fear-based as well, like heavy fear, because I was afraid of the dark and the images that were coming into my mind. Honestly, I just kept on thinking someone's going to attack me at every single instance. I was looking into any dark corner and thinking something's going to get me. So that was like relentless. And I just couldn't believe like the position I was in at that point. Because at that point as well, I learned all about, the nervous system stuff, the body stuff. And I know how it happened. It just happened. And prevention. This is one thing I will say. Make sure you prevent before it gets to that point. I didn't take it seriously, and then it became bigger than what I needed to do. Obviously, completely fine now. So at least I have the learning lessons, which I'm going to give to you in this training. But yes, ultimately, again, intrusive thoughts, worrying, it doesn't matter if it's illogical or logical. Yeah, we're just going to cover it all so that no matter what your mind is going on about, we just know how to stop it. Now, just as an FYI to you, of course, everyone's going to be different, right? Just in my own personal journey, for that phobia as an example, I did overcome that pretty much in just 2 weeks, right? So again, the speed at which this can happen can occur very fast if you focus on the right things. We're just going to get right into it, because ultimately, when you identify the actual root cause of things, it just makes everything so much easier. So what I want to discuss with you in today's training is this component of my methodology, which is emotional reparenting. Okay, so this is really, really important here. And there's a reason why I call it emotional reparenting as well, because ultimately, when it comes to the root issue of why we overthink, why we always have to constantly worry, well, it's twofold, okay? Number one, this is why I said on the last video, somatic reprogramming. I talked a lot about the body, right? And that basically, in a nutshell, you go through life and there are certain tensions, stresses, emotions that you go through that were unprocessed. It overloads the system and therefore sensitizes what is your nervous system. When you have a sensitized nervous system, this will naturally, again, because it's on edge, basically, this is naturally going to put you on edge, meaning you're more alert, more prone to worry, because basically when your nervous system is sensitized, it is doing its job, which is basically keeping you safe, meaning it will look for anything that is wrong in your life, anything. and it will want to fixate on it because, again, it's trying to protect you, okay? But that from a body level is important. So when you're able to offload a lot of, again, the tensions, emotions, stresses that's in the body and process it out, right? Channel that energy out, then you'll actually find that, again, when things are just like lighter, right, that the mind quietens down as well. So that's one element for sure. So there's still a body component of this, for sure. Again, this is why I was saying check out that video if you just want to understand the concepts on that a bit better. But then there's also what is the emotional reparenting components, right? So at the end of the day, in both cases, these two things still deal with what is trauma. Trauma is still the thing, and both of these still deal with it. When it comes to somatic reprogramming, this is physicality of trauma. Again, there's a physiological stress response, and that is the trauma we talk about when we're talking about the body, okay? Which can include emotions for sure. When I'm talking about emotional reparenting and trauma, yes, I mentioned that there are things in life that you go through, and those things can include unprocessed emotions, right? So the emotions here are the key thing, hence why this is emotional reparenting. But why reparenting? Because that's what we need to do in order to heal those components of us. So think about it this way. Your overthinking, worrying mind, right? What is that? In a nutshell, it's because you just don't feel safe. If you really thought about it conceptually, if you feel safe, true safety, like you feel proper safe, right? Then what does that mean? Can you really worry? Like, is that possible to worry, overthink anything if you feel safe? Like genuine feelings, emotions of safety, like I am okay, like I'm okay. And I feel that. You can't worry because it wouldn't make sense, right? Like the reason we worry is because we don't feel okay, because we don't feel safe, right? So when it comes to what is anxiety and that constant overthinking, worrying mind, what's really happening is that at a nervous system level, okay, again, it is in the body, you just don't feel safe. That's why you overthink. But ultimately, where did that lack of safety actually come from? Well, going back to emotional reparenting. So when you don't feel safe, this is usually stemming from a thing of what I like to call emotional wounds. Okay, so let me explain this fully, because ultimately there are some of you here that, yes, the reason that you're overthinking and worrying is because of what's happening in the body itself, right? So again, there is a wound, and it doesn't have to mean, you experienced something in the past necessarily. It's just you experience the anxiety you have now, and it caused such overwhelm that in the system it imprinted, I am not safe. And now every single time from that wound, it's like, I'm okay. Now that I kind of explained, what somatic reprogramming is, at the end of the day, remember that anxiety you feel, that's just your body trying to channel things out, right? So it's doing what it's meant to do, but now you're fearing that. So that's why you're stuck in that cycle. But if you're able to feel safe and just let the body always do what it needs to do, then you're gonna be fine. Now, for some of you, you say, oh no, but there's genuine things in life, and that's what I'm worrying about. I'm worrying about whatever, work or relationships or just other elements of life. So not to do with, again, what's going on in the body here, right? Yes, then there's something going on there. There's definitely something going on there, and that stems from the emotional wound. So what is that emotional wound? It's still trauma. It's still trauma. Again, you went through life and there was things that you just could not process in the moment in time, but they're emotional. But these emotions, it meant that you felt certain feelings, right? Certain emotions. And these emotions could be emotions such as shame and guilt and sadness and all of that. But then it kind of leaves the imprint of, yes, I'm not safe. Maybe the imprint of I'm not enough. I'm not seen. I'm not loved. There's different imprints, and these imprints are the emotional wound because they get stored again at the body, and they live, let's say, within the nervous system. Again, like, and you know this, like anything could have done this, by the way, right? Your parents scolding you, doesn't have to be scolding, could have just been a, big boys don't cry, and that message in you, it just, I can't cry anymore, right? Because if I cry, then that it means that I'm weak. If I'm weak, maybe I'm not loved. I'm not enough. And if I'm not enough, maybe I'm not loved, right? So they can always stem from something. Now, again, it doesn't have to be from the past. It does, like literally, I have gone through trauma again, and it's more recent in my adult life. Like trauma doesn't, like this stuff doesn't mean it happened when you were 7 years old or whatever. Because a lot of people say that, and I don't agree with it. Like it's not. It's like trauma can happen whenever, and your nervous system will just, again, it will pick up that imprint and form that emotional wound, which then drives a certain behavior. So it makes sense, as an example, that if you do not feel safe, and let's take out again the body from this, right? If it's not about being safe within your body, let's say you're not safe, you don't feel safe generally, right? Then it makes sense that you try to control life, because in order to feel safe, you want everything structured and scheduled and knowing what's going to be what and doing whatever, the maths, the numbers, just making sure that life is exactly as you planned out. And if anything goes outside of what you said should be the way to do it, you're like, oh crap, it's out of control. And then that's the reason you feel that way, right? That you have to like constantly be there and vigilate and just, be on top of everything because you don't feel safe. Same thing that if you don't feel loved, right? Deep down, by the way, when I say emotional wounds, these are things that you're not even conscious of, right? So even before I get to the loved one, let's go to the not enough, right? Because that's what I went through personally. And I had to uncover that wound for myself and clear it so that I could finally just stop, right? So not enough. It makes sense that if you, again, deep down feel not enough, what's going to happen is that you're always going to try and prove that you are enough. You're going to do things to show that you are enough. Therefore, you will put yourself through stress. You will put yourself through anxiety to be enough through work, through burying yourself and just being like, yeah, I need this on point, that on point. Everything has to be perfect. Nothing can be wrong. Like this way, I will prove that I am enough. So can you see that the emotional wound drives certain behaviors and certain thought patterns, worry, overthinking, etc., to ensure that you protect yourself? So again, the mechanism here, and this is what trauma does, you go through trauma and then the nervous system tries to protect you from it, right? But by doing so, now you develop anxieties. Same thing with the not safe. Same thing. If you're trying to control everything, that feels, well, anxious. That feels tense. That feels like, damn, you can't relax. So the behaviors and what the emotional wounds do develop anxiety in and of itself for sure. And then just the other example as an example, the not loved. And this one could be like something like people pleasing. Right? You put yourself last, everyone else first, because at the end of the day, in order to feel loved, you think that it has to be earned, that only by doing this action and worrying again and doing things for them and always having to be, on top of things for their sake, but you leave yourself last, even though it hurts you, even though it causes you more tension, anxieties, and you don't want to, and you want to look at yourself first. Again, it's all driven by that emotional wound of, I am not enough. It's the emotional wound. When you tackle the emotional wound, when you clear it, that is when you eliminate the worrying. Because yes, if you do feel enough, if you do feel loved, if you do feel safe, like truly, as in you cleared that blockage, that energy block, right? And you cleared it from the system, from the nervous system, then why would you worry? You wouldn't, because you have full confidence within yourself that you are safe, you are loved, you are enough, whatever it may be, you are seen, you are heard, you feel whole. This is why the reason I do call it reparenting is because that's what you need to do. You need to connect and feel and be with that emotion again, right? Before I explain how we actually do that, let's go into again what you've tried and why it hasn't worked therefore. Because ultimately, thinking about it, let's go with CBT and therapy, right? All about rationalizing your thoughts and like what's what. But if this is trauma, if this is based in the body, again, because that's what the emotional wound is, it's encrusted in there. So let me use my not enough example again. Even if that person became aware, oh yeah, I have feelings of I'm not enough, and then started becoming aware like, oh, every single time I do this, that's just me trying to prove I'm enough, so I'm going to stop. But they will always feel on edge because they're like I really got to do it, man. I'm not sure, I'll come, like, I should, it's really stressing me out. I want to know. You see, like, it's not a thing of, oh, you're aware and then now you're fixed. It doesn't work that way because the driver is still, again, the trauma, the emotional wound that's still encrusted within you. So when you do things like CBT and therapy, you are still, yes, you're gaining an awareness and understanding, and that's the first part. In emotional reparenting, that's exactly what I do. You need to understand what is the wound, right? What is actually coming up for you and bring it to the surface. I'm getting ahead of myself. But when we bring it to the surface, we'll get it cleared. Again, I'm going to explain that process in a bit. But again, that's why CBT and therapy doesn't work. Let's compare this as well to maybe hypnotherapy. Same thing, we've kind of described this, and it's just like when things are buried really deep, these emotional wounds, again, they're buried. So when you try to instill confidence or safety and you go into your relaxed state and trance and you're giving the subconscious mind suggestions of like how you want to be, those suggestions, again, they're just overwritten, or basically they're not penetrating down into where they need to go, because at the end of the day, if this lives in the body, like nothing is going to, again, convince your subconscious or your mind that, hey, you don't need to worry anymore. So this is always going to be the problem if you don't tackle the root, which is, again, that trauma, and again, I should write it down here, which is that emotional wound. That's really what's going on, the emotional wound, okay? I mean, really, that's in here. Because as I said, this one is more the survival stress. This is survival stress over here. So as you can see, really the important thing is, can we get rid of this? Can we get rid of that emotional wound? And if you do, then that's when you finally fix the overthinking and worrying mind. So going back to it, and now I can get ahead of myself, which is the emotional reparenting. In that moment, again, this is all about what is unprocessed emotion. So what needs to happen is that we need to process them. And that means we need to feel them. And that means it doesn't feel great. It means that, yes, when you have feelings of I'm not safe, I'm not loved, I'm not enough, that's exactly how you need to feel. Because you need to tap into that and create a space of presence, of connection with those emotions. And let me explain it this way, because let's say for a child, okay? And there's a reason why I call this reparenting. Because for a child, when they're scared, when they're going through things, like understand that child, when they're young, they are basically just a ball of emotions, okay? They don't have logical thinking minds. When I say a child, I mean, I'm talking about like baby toddler, really young. They can't even speak, they can't reason, because I want you to understand, like, yes, that is the essence of what we are when we're talking about maybe the unconscious or subconscious mind. Again, these emotional wounds, they live in a layer much deeper than what's up here consciously. So when the child starts to cry and is afraid, whatever, because of a dog, because of a thunderstorm, because of a whatever, someone hit them, whatever it may be, in that moment in time, what does the parent do? Does the parent say, oh, look, you know, just, you're fine, like proper crying, afraid, like in a state of worry and panic? Look, it's okay, you're fine, right? And then the child just continues, you know, in the same kind of tantrum and cycle and the fit of worry. Like, what do? Do we just, look, why are you crying? Do you understand that this is that? Like, hey, this is nothing scary, look, it's okay. That's not our first instinct, is it? The first instinct is to pick up the child, wipe away the tears, like hold the child, really be there present with the child. And it's really all emotional. Like, it's not a thing of like, yeah, like, yes, we say it's okay, but we're doing it more energetically. It's not the words, and we're not trying to justify and say that what the child is feeling is wrong either. You know, oh, you never say, oh, you shouldn't feel that way, right? Or that's wrong. It's just, yeah, I understand you feel that way. I'm here for you. They're there. It's okay. There's more of a feeling element to it. That's the exact same thing that we need to be doing with ourselves, with these suppressed emotional wounds. The whole idea is that we want to bring these emotional wounds to the surface such that we can reparent them, such that we can integrate with them again. Because I'm not saying you can necessarily clear them all, right? And let me explain the clearing actually, since I mentioned it. This is why somatic reprogramming works in tandem. Because what we really want is this. We want a thing of, we're going back and forth between what is emotional reparenting, which is to bring this into awareness, reparent that emotion. But at the same time, we use tools from somatic reprogramming that allows us to channel out the energy too. That allows us to also, part of this body work, to self-soothe, to self-comfort, to, again, connect with that part of us that basically then allows it to feel safe. That's the primary thing. The whole point of this is to create safety. Safety is the game. And that is the whole thing with emotional reparenting and somatic reprogramming, is we just want to bring that emotional wound to the surface, create safety around it so that basically it is cleared. That means you have to feel it. That means, yes, it may not feel good at the start, but what you find is that when you connect with it the right way and create presence, connection, safety around that emotion, the emotion just dissipates. And not because you're justifying or trying to logically rationalize what it's feeling. It's just a layer of support that, again, just says, I understand you and I'm here for you. And that's it. True presence, true connection. Nothing of like, hey, go away, or hey, you don't need to feel that way. That's also really bad. Or hey, you're safe, you are safe. No, like, your subconscious or your nervous system, it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel loved. It doesn't feel enough. It doesn't feel whatever it's not feeling. Again, something's unprocessed that is real in the body. So when you're trying to reject those things or rationalize those things immediately, that's why it remains stuck, right? These emotional wounds basically are there and they are forming parts of you. They are parts basically of you that feel a certain way. And you need to clear those emotions, right? Through this practice of emotional reparenting and somatic reprogramming too, right? It can be a blend of the two so that effectively the emotional wound no longer exists. And when the emotional wound no longer exists, of course, even if you feel the anxieties, but you feel safe. Now you just feel them and you literally don't have to, overthink or worry about them. Or again, if you heal the emotional wounds of not enough or not loved, all of this, not seen, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to exhibit any behavior to control or to feel or to do these things that you feel loved. Like your mind just quietens down because there's no wound anymore. And that's how you really fix the overthinking and worrying mind. In my own journey, that's exactly, again, what I had to do. At the end of the day, when it came to a phobia, not safe. All I was instilling in myself is safety, 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 going through the same process, dealing with the emotional wound of not feeling safe. When it came to my stress and worry, right? And trauma actually as well. Trauma was actually, I do not trust myself. That's where it came from, which is technically safety is too, right? But again, it's an emotional wound. Like I looked at myself and I was like, I don't trust myself, which was crazy to me at the time. When it came to, again, the stress and worry, lots of feeling of not enough. And I realized I was always pushing myself and stressing out and worrying about this and that, how I have to achieve that and do this, because again, it's all to do with an emotional wound. When I cleared the emotional wounds, you just let go. Like there's you just let go. That's as simple as it is. So emotional wounds are the key. Clear the emotional wounds, you stop the overthinking and worrying mind. So it doesn't matter what the worrying thought is that you have, right? Whatever the thoughts are, intrusive or not, maybe it's constant on a loop. At the end of the day, when you clear this, it just finally stops. So yes, if you have tried like CBT and mindfulness and meditations and all this stuff, again, like at the end of the day, it's all trauma-based, as I said. With both somatic reprogramming, emotional reparenting, it's all about going deeper. And once you clear what's in the body, process, let go of what's in the body, that's when everything actually just fixes itself. So that's it for this video. Everything that you need to stop the overthinking, worrying mind. Now we're gonna go into the next video, which talks about beliefs. And this is beliefs, namely negative beliefs, that keep you stuck in the same cycles of what you're living, even if you have the right tools. So even if you have this, the thing that does keep my own clients back, and I've seen it, is basically them self-doubting themselves, which is a belief thing, right? So we're going to discuss beliefs, why it keeps you stuck and what to do so that you go from basically a person who has anxiety to finally a person who just lives their life like any normal person who's just their old self again.